recognize Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to set the record straight. Earlier, our colleague from Virginia said Republicans have manufactured investigations. So again, I want to set the record straight. Lois Lerner targeted conservatives. That's not Ranking Member Comer saying that. That's not Jim Jordan saying that. That's not Republicans saying that. That was the Inspector General at the Treasury Department saying that. The Democrats, specifically Hillary Clinton, tried to misinform, mislead the American people about the tragedy that happened in Benghazi. Here's what she said just days after that tragedy. Some have sought to justify this vicious behavior as a response to inflammatory material on the internet. She tried to blame it on a video. John Koskinen, who came in to, quote, fix up the IRS, he actually destroyed backup tapes that were under a preservation order. Republicans haven't manufactured anything. Democrats certainly have when it comes to President Trump. Democrats targeted President Trump. They lied to the FISA court. They altered evidence in front of the FISA court. Again, not Ranking Member Comer doing that, saying that. This was the Inspector General at the Justice Department, Mr. Horowitz. They did all that. We know they did it all to do what? To spy on President Trump's campaign. They had a Washington Post wrote about this. That the FBI had someone posing as somebody else bump into Papadopoulos in Europe. You know what they call that? When someone pretends to be somebody else and they're being paid by the FBI to bump into someone associated with this campaign. You know what they call that? Spying. That's what they did. And this all led to Jim Comey leaking the memos to create momentum to get the special counsel, which they got, Robert Mueller, 2 years, 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents, $30 million later. What did they find? Not a darn thing. And he says Republicans manufacture things. They manufacture, they're still doing it. 7 years they've been going after President Trump. We just want to do the legitimate investigations, and this is certainly one. How do we know? Because last spring, the Washington Post did 2 articles, March 20th, 30th, this spring, 2 articles, 8-page articles, 4 minutes apart, talking about the Hunter Biden laptop as being real and his connections with Chinese companies. This is as real as it gets. So I guess the real question is, what are the Democrats afraid of? We're just asking for information. We're not asking for anything. Just give us the facts. We want to know the communicate. We want the information. That's all we're asking for. And it's kind of important when you think about what happened in 2020. What happened in 2020? 51 former Intel agents misled the country when they signed the letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. No, it wasn't. The Washington Post told us so March 30th of this year. Oh, and what else happened? The FBI went to Facebook and said, hey, you might want to be on the lookout for Russian disinformation. Wink, wink. Don't talk about this story. And what else happened? Maybe the most important thing. We had whistleblowers go to Senator Grassley and say that FBI agents, specifically Timothy Tebow, suppressed evidence about the Hunter Biden family operation just days and weeks before the most important election we have, a presidential election. And so what we have in front of the committee today is simply, let's just get the information. After the American people were lied to prior to the 2020 election about this story, why not let them have the truth now? It's 2 years too late to have an impact on the most important election we have in our nation. 2 years too late, but at least we should get it. And Democrats say, no. Let's just say that Republicans do things that are manufactured investigations when in fact they're not, because the Inspector General at Treasury, the Inspector General at Justice have all said they were legitimate investigations where they did wrong things. We're simply asking for information. And you guys know we can't do it. We can't do it. We're not going to do it. We're going to defend Joe Biden no matter what, even though all the evidence is there, even though the Washington Post, your favorite newspaper, said so this past spring. This is a good resolution. We should do it. I can't believe the Democrats are opposing it. I yield back.
Right. I now get to recognize my friend, debating partner, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schellenberger, I think you said earlier the U.S. has reduced carbon emissions and greenhouse gas. Greenhouse gas reduction has happened in America, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's significant, right?
Massive, the biggest in history.
So the biggest in history, much more than China or India, some of our bigger competitors economically, more than the European Union in absolute numbers, right?
Yes.
Is there any country in the world that's done better than the United States?
No.
So we're the best.
Yes,
The best when it comes to dealing with the climate.
by far.
Okay. So in the previous hearing about a year ago, the chairman asked the CEO of Chevron, "Are you embarrassed as an American company that your production is going up?" That's a strange question to ask when we're reducing emissions. This is a critical energy source for our economy, as my friend from Louisiana said just a few minutes ago, that uplifts people all over our country and frankly around the world. When the American economy is strong, I think the world's a safer, better place. That's kind of a strange question. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
I mean, does the Congress, so the chairman said that he said the Republicans talk about it, I think his quote was a war on the oil and gas industry. I don't know if it's a war, but when the chairman of an important committee in Congress tells a CEO, "Are you embarrassed that you're actually making more of your product?" We don't do that to any other industry, do we?
No, I mean, not only that, but Meta, Facebook, Apple, and Google had profits of 39 billion, 30 billion, and 76 billion last year. And I didn't see this committee holding hearings on those profits, nor on the huge losses that the shale frackers had. From 2010 to 2020, U.S. shale frackers lost 300 billion. That did not happen in the high-tech industry in Congressman Khanna's district. Those firms did not suffer. Moreover, the Interior Department distributed just 200 leases for oil and gas development during President Biden's first 19 months in office. During Obama and Trump, there were 10 times as many leases. No president since Nixon has leased out fewer than 4.4 million acres during its first 19 months in office. Now, if I may, Congressman, I'll just add one thing, because there was a couple of pieces of information that people stated here that were incorrect. The first is that someone said that New York is moving away from gas. That's false. New York burned natural gas and oil, went from 77% to 89% of its electricity supply between 2020 and 2021 because New York shut down a perfectly functioning nuclear power plant. So New York is not moving away from gas. It became more dependent on gas because of the war on American energy. There was another statement that was made that hurricanes will become more frequent in the United States. That is also not the prediction of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It supports the notion of a substantial decrease, 25%, in the overall number of Atlantic hurricanes and tropical storms. So in terms of misinformation, we've seen some here today.
So I think earlier you said that, when you look at the ladder, I think there's a term you use, wood, coal, oil, gas, uranium. That's how the energy intensity you get from those moves up as you go up the ladder. Why does the left hate so much the two at the top that are clean, right? They're the clean, gas and uranium clean. Why do they hate them so much? What's your thoughts on it?
Because because they provide the most abundant energy. And if you think that Western civilization is bad, or if you think that human beings are bad, then you want to move towards energy dilute fuels, which provide too little energy to sustain Western civilization.
And that's scary. If that's in fact the case, that is scary. Is there a serious crisis brewing in Europe this year when it comes to energy and energy needs?
We have not begun to come to grips with how serious this crisis is. 70% decline in fertilizer production. The United Nations Food Program estimates that hundreds of millions of people will die from hunger-related diseases or from hunger this year.
And is pressuring American companies in a congressional hearing where you would say to the CEO of a major oil and gas company, "Are you embarrassed about production?" I remember that hearing. It happened last October where the chairman went down the line, said, "Will you pledge today to decrease production? Why won't you?" Decreasing production, would that help or hurt the situation in Europe?
It's going to result in more deaths from cold, pollution, and industrial collapse. It's going to be devastating.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's scary to think that politics is driving something that's going to harm families, people, communities in the European Union. And let's hope that same mentality doesn't catch hold here and do that kind of harm to the American families.
Sir, I would just add that the people that are suffering the most are the poorest countries. It's countries like Pakistan, which are being outbidded for LNG supplies by Europe, that are going to suffer the most. As usual, it will be the poorest countries in the world that will suffer the most from the war on natural gas.